David Ash is doing really well. He's back at practice. He is not practicing yet, but he's in every meeting. He's in all the team meetings, and he's around. And he and Major and Case are talking a lot about game plans and stuff. And Steve Edmond was he was in the office this morning. He's walking around. He's feeling well. He said he felt like he could play Saturday, and I said, oh, I wish. But he and David should be 100% for spring practice and be back in there. Neither one would play in the bowl game. Caleb Blewett is a young man that we thought did so well on defense when he was over there before. He is doing some good things for us at tight end, but he made some key plays the other night. And with us losing Jackson and Reggie Wilson, we'll probably leave Caleb at defensive end because we think that's his position for the future. Also, I've really was impressed in 04 and the same this year with Greg Robinson's ability, like Pete Carroll and like Monty Kiffin, to disrupt offenses, force negative plays, and force turnovers. Those guys have always had a unique way of coming up with plays on defense and disrupting quarterbacks, and Greg's done a really good job with that since he's been back. Questions?
Mack, when the weather's supposed to be as bad as it potentially is, do you look at that at all, or is that something you just kind of wait till game day and see how it is when you actually get there?
No, we talk about it a lot as a staff because you may have a different offense or kicking game 2 quarters, and you just have to wait till you get there. And a lot of those decisions will be made in pregame because you'll go out and throw into it and kick into it. And we didn't have much wind yesterday. It doesn't look like we'll have a lot today. We may get some tomorrow, but we've tried to kick into and punt into the wind as much as we can this week, and just to get the guys ready for that. Alex King is working with our kicking game as a graduate assistant. He made an interesting point yesterday. Anthony Farrah's worked in cold weather and wind and rain and snow more than anybody, so it sure shouldn't affect him any with the kicking game. But a lot of times you do have different mentality of when to kick the field goals, how close can you get. It changes that drastically, and this is an open stadium. And when we've been up there before, it has been windy, so it's something that we'll just have to decide in pregame. Doesn't sound like wind's going to be, the sun's going to be an issue, which it usually is at 2:30, and there could be some rain or sleet, it sounds like, as well. So I think we'll just have to figure it out. But we always tell our guys, if you're going to play in the NFL, you got to play in Green Bay and you got to play in Minneapolis. So if you can't handle weather conditions, then you're not going to be a guy that keeps playing very long.
Baylor scores so much, Mack. Will you keep with your, historically you've gone forward, been a little bit more aggressive on the opponent's side of the 50 and knowing that the points will be at a premium? Is that something you're still going to look at?
We will, as long as we're making them. That's the other thing we tell the players. It's easy to go for them when you make them. So if you get a 4th and 2 and you're at the 50 or the 45, you go for more 4th down situations and when you're going in than you normally would, because you got to match their points, and they're going to score points. That's just who they are. And the other thing, they force so many turnovers, but a lot of teams get so far behind so quickly to them that they get out of their offense and just start slinging it every play. And we've got to be who we are. We've got to try to slow them down and make sure that we hang in the game early and can keep running the offense that we've been successful running this year.
After the game this week, you were kind of disappointed with the special teams outside of Terry. Is that something you paid a little more attention to this week?
Yes, we did a much better job than we've done all year on kickoff coverage. So I probably talked too much about the things we don't do well and not enough about the things that we do well. But kickoff coverage was great. And again, you've got a situation on Saturday afternoon. You can probably kick it out 2 quarters, and you'll probably have to look at some other type kick for 2 quarters, because if it's 15 miles an hour right in your face, I don't know that you're going to kick it out very often. But our kickoff coverage was better than it's been. Secondly, our punt returns are good. We averaged 13 yards a punt return. So Jackson Shipley did a very good job in those areas. Where it did hurt us is we had the penalty, and we had the I don't even know if you call it a fake, but Erkslaven running it in because we allowed it, and he was a heady player, so that hurt us. But the punt returns were good because 13-yard average is really good. Our kickoff returns have not been consistently good, and we've got to do a better job in that area. And again, you figure you're going to return kickoffs 2 quarters, and you're going to have to worry about a ball getting hung up in the wind and coming down and catching it. But you figure there's 2 quarters, they're going to kick it out. as well. And then you've got to look at Anthony with the punts. Normally, what we have done in our past with Justin Tucker was if it was really windy, we would rugby into the wind and keep it lower. And especially at Nebraska a couple of years ago, we'd try to kick it back across the field and make it more difficult to have a return set up. But Anthony's not a rugby guy. He just doesn't like it very much. So it'll be interesting to watch him punt into the wind on Saturday because he's got such a strong leg. And I do feel like he's as good as there is out there in his field goals. He's just been unbelievable.
Back with the Jay return to his job as a returner, or were the other guys that did it last week continue to keep?
He will definitely return kickoffs. Right now, we're still looking at punts. He would probably not be out there for punts. But he will be deep on the first kickoff.
What are you looking for his impact on the offense after not having him last week?
We didn't practice him a lot last week, so we kept him out of the game plan for those 10 days. So we have got some limited things in for him, but what he does best is makes plays in space with his speed. And that's what you try to do is get him the ball in space. But on a more limited basis, you're not going to have as much as we took into Brigham Young, per se. Chuck, you've tried twice, and they've been rude, Chuck. I know. No, you need to stand up, Chuck, and be stronger here. You got to be strong.
Just wanted to ask you, do you see a sense from these guys? I know you probably don't have to say much to them about the implications and after this team worked so hard to get to this point, but do you see kind of the light bulb going off for these guys Sunday, Monday, Tuesday in terms of preparation and what could be ahead?
Yes, you look at Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and the implications of what you get out of it. There's a conference championship, maybe but maybe a conference championship on the line. There's a BCS game possibly on the line. You've still got a chance to go 10-3 when you were 1-2 to start with. So we talked about it as a staff this morning, and what they need to understand is don't go in uptight. Be aggressive. You got to come in and bring your best shot. But at the same time, as coaches, we've got to do the same thing. Put our best stuff out there and turn it loose and let it go, and then enjoy the fact that you got here. I mean, our guys have played in the BCS before. They've played. Some of these guys were around when we played Alabama for the national championship, and you can't go in uptight, and you can't go in worried about it. Just be who you are, and that's why we're not talking about the game in Stillwater, because it's something we can't control. And very honestly, regardless of what happens in Stillwater, if we don't win, it's not good. So we need to take advantage of our opportunity to beat Baylor, and then the rest of the stuff works itself out.
Mack, on that same note, do you notice a difference in the preparation from Oklahoma State week, or were the guys uptight Oklahoma State week, or did you notice?
No, I really didn't. I thought that these guys haven't had a lot of margin for error, so they've been pretty intense every week. So I like the way they practice. I like who they are. We didn't respond well after the debacle of halftime before Oklahoma State. And other than that, they've responded well in every ball game when we've been in trouble throughout the year since Ole Miss. So I do think that they'll play hard, and they're going to be excited about this game.
Mack, with all the noise out there, as you called it, about you, have you addressed that at all with the team?
I really haven't. This is about these kids, and it's about this team, and I'm very unimportant. And I absolutely have not mentioned it. Didn't mention it after Ole Miss, Brigham Young. I just said, let's go back to work. And really, at that time, touched it briefly with the coaches. Hey, we can all lay down and feel sorry for ourselves because we didn't do our job in the first 3 ball games, or we can all go back to work and pull this thing in tight and pick these kids up and be the team that we thought we were going to be in preseason. And I have not been mentioned in either case since.
Mack, Baylor for the majority of this season was dominant. Last couple games more susceptible. What have you noticed as the big changes for them?
They've had more trouble on the road than they have at home. And at home, they've dominated people. I mean, the scores are just outlandish, and that's the way they've been the last couple of years. They came in here and beat us a couple of years ago, and going back and looking at those stats, we kicked 4 field goals in the red zone and scored 1 touchdown and got beat 30-22. So we had our opportunities, we just didn't finish it well. But they're a very confident team right now, and they're playing so well at home. But they were slowed a little bit at Kansas State, which we all know you can be in that position at Kansas State. they haven't won at Oklahoma State in years, so that's just been a hard place for them to play, and who knows, we've had that happen with Kansas State here. And then you look at last week, TCU has been a team that's given them some trouble in the past as well. I think they beat them last year. So I don't see anything unusual out of the last couple of weeks, except they've been able to fight through in the TCU game and win in a tough environment. And there'll be a lot going on Saturday. Whatever you can do to hype one, they've got it hyped.
Other than TCU plays normally great defense, what do they specifically do to take Baylor's offense down?
Well, they scored 41 points, and I know some of that was on defense, but when you start looking at it, your defense scores 21 points, you're not going to have the ball as much, for one thing. And I think Gary coaches as well as anybody in the country on defense, and TCU's got really good players. But I think that the TCU-Baylor rivalry has been a fun one to watch for the last couple of years, and those two teams really get after each other.
Mack, getting back to the kickoff returns for a second, do you have any theories on why they haven't been what you wanted?
Oh, I'm not sure. We've looked at it really hard over the last couple of weeks, and I was really frustrated with it on Thursday night. So we've gone back and we've pulled up every one of them for the season, and we've looked at why every one of them that has not been successful has been, and the few that have been good, we've looked at that, and some of it's personnel, probably doing a little too much, so we're going to try to simplify it some, and we've changed a lot of guys on it for injury, and we've changed a lot of guys on it because they didn't do well, and it's just something that we've got to do a better job with and put more emphasis on.
Are y'all saving your tight end receivers for the ball game or next year? Or
Yes.
Or what?
Yes. Now, Greg and Jeff can both catch, and we've got some stuff in. We just hadn't thrown it to them. But most of our stuff has been play action deep to the fast guys outside, and the tight ends have been so involved in the power running game, and the fact that with maximum protection off of play action, a lot of times they don't go out. And that's probably hurt some of their opportunities to catch.
Matt Case said he could kind of see some similarities from this week and Oklahoma week, just in terms of the way you got to focus and prepare. Do you see your team kind of handling it similarly?
We told them that the attitude we had for Kansas State, the attitude we had during the week for Oklahoma, and the attitude we had for TCU is what we need to see this week, and we need to play like that on Saturday afternoon.
Mac, is there any edge here, because your guys came to Texas to play these kinds of games, they have been involved in these types of games. This is a little new experience for Baylor, being in a situation with so much on the line.
I think it would have been before Chuck, but Baylor's played at a high level the last couple of years and gone to bowl games and won in their bowl game last year against UCLA and against Washington. So I really think that would be too much talked about now more than reality.
As much as you say as you don't want to talk about Oklahoma State this week, there's a good chance I'll be on the scoreboard right when y'all start. I mean, will you mention that at all when that happens, or try to ignore it?
We always have our pregame meeting as such on Thursday. And on Thursday, I will talk to them about the bowl options that are out there, because we usually do it on Sunday and Thursday, and tell him here's what I hear, and here's what happens, and it's up to you all to end up being in the best bowl you can. And I will tell them that beating Baylor is the only thing that helps you. You can't do anything about the other, so who cares? Don't worry about it. And you can become a champion by beating Baylor regardless. So let's don't let feelings go up and down. Somebody said, are you going to watch Northern Illinois on Friday night with Bowling Green? Yeah, because I watch Friday night football. I'm not going to watch it to see who's going to play and all that kind of stuff. We got our hands full with Baylor, and I'm sure Art feels the same way. The only thing that matters to us is our game with Baylor. The other stuff it's going to take care of itself, and obviously Texas and Baylor would rather Oklahoma State get beat, but we have no control. We got no dog in that fight. We got to worry about our own.
You ever shut down a stadium before? You ever closed one out before?
We've opened one. That was a mess down in Central Florida. Boy, that was exciting. With a lightning delay and 5 turnovers and 38-35 at the end, that was exciting. Said we'd never open another one, so I don't think we've ever closed one. I don't think. People usually don't close stadiums. So.
Do you even show the
No.
turnovers?
No, he'll be asked enough about that. And that Case is a different person right now than he was then. This has been his team really since the halftime at Kansas State, and he's been aggressive with it. He's taken it forward. When he's made mistakes, he's more than admitted it and taken responsibility for it. I'm sure he'll go back and look at last year's game more, and it was David, but that would be the Phil Bennett defense that a lot of what we'll see on Saturday afternoon. But, you all been around Case a lot. He's a very upbeat, positive guy, and he'd just say, nope, messed it up, shouldn't have done it, moving on. And he gets rid of it pretty quick.
Is that an admirable trait? Because you see five-star guys who maybe don't have the kind of confidence that Case has just going forward.
It is, and Colt had the same type confidence, and being a coach's son, I think that's something you do. You live with it, and he sees his dad go with ups and downs as a coach, and that's what you do, and he moves forward. I saw him the other day talking about, at the press conference with you all, I saw a little clip where he said something about, threw it good, had a lot of great plays, 4 touchdowns, but threw some I shouldn't have thrown. Won't do that this weekend. Just got to do it better, and that's who he is. I don't think he sits around and worries about that stuff.
When did John blew it back to the defensive end prior to the attack?
Last Tuesday. Yeah, it was before, just before the game, but we were thin at defensive tackle anyway, and a couple of guys banged up in there, and then when more defensive ends because he was going to play a third defensive end on most of the series against Tech, we felt like that we needed at least 5 guys, and he gave us the 5th one to put out there, and he did really well. But he was a guy that Greg Robinson really liked when he was watching all of our practice video in preseason. He kept asking about 42, and we were looking at him both ways. And since Jeff Swain has done such a good job, that alleviates some of the pressure, short-term pressure for tight end. We just need to find a young one that's going to step up and be able to do the same thing that he and Greg Daniels have done.
Time for 2 last ones, guys. How we handled it.
Let me go here and I'll come over.
Did Kendall Thompson get cleared?
They're still looking at him
Okay.
day to day, so we'll know.
Is he under the same week-long thing that Ash was under because of
No.
his injury?
No, he'd be a 24-hour clearance or 48, whatever it is. So you'd think he would not, unless they clear him for practice today, he may not can practice. But I remember a couple of years ago he was able to play, even though he didn't practice, and he's been around a long time. So he can help us if they release him.
On that note, are there any other linebackers, or is it just those 4, Santos, Jenkins, Cole, and Aaron Benson? Just those 4?
That's it.
Did you were talking about Caleb, does that also make it easier for Greg to do things like what he did with Jackson, moving inside the way he did on several of the other plays?
It does, and that's what we're looking at this week is obviously Baylor will work on what we did against Tech all week. So what do you do to tweak some of that? Do you use it? Do you change some things up? What do you do when you're down on linebackers? You're short. It really brings up the point that the AFCA made, and I shared with you all earlier in the year, that you would love to have the ability for a young man to play 3 games, 5 games, because right now you could play DeMarco Cobbs. You could bring Antoine Davis in for kicking game and let him be involved. A lot of those freshmen that are redshirted or older guys that are redshirted and not cost their year, if we could just let them play in a couple of games here at the end of the year, and I think it's safer. It really makes it more upbeat for these young people, and would give them something to look forward to on a year that they're not getting to play. And I will say too, Jonathan Gray was out at practice yesterday, and he was on his scooter and he's riding around yelling at everybody and picking them up. So it's just it's amazing to see guys like Jackson Shipley not catch a pass the other night and not care. He wanted to win. Mike Davis was our best blocker in the game. Case didn't care that we threw it 19 times. That wasn't an issue for him. Joe Bergeron, who got basically taken out of the running back scenario because he fumbled twice, became our best special teams player, and then wants to reward or honor Jonathan Gray because he wears his number during a ball game. So this team has been a team that has really cared about winning and cared about each other, and they've grown much closer after the adversity early.